What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Roman's Creative Academy. I'm Jay.
And I'm Mike.
And this week, we're actually going to talk about what people don't tell you about creative financing, right? We love to talk about what are the things that you need to do, you should implement, but what is it that they don't tell you? These are the things that you need to focus on, right? So I'm going to start off with number one, and that is the biggest red flag for people that stop them from doing creative deals, and that's debunking the due on sale clause.
Yep. So this is a big stopper for a lot of people, not only buyers, but sellers, right? More likely than not, a lot of sellers actually understand this, and they go online after you talk with them about what you're looking to do, and that's the first thing that comes up. So it's really important for not only you to be educated on this, as well as making sure that your seller's educated, and if you're wholesaling it, your buyer is too. So,
and let's state the obvious, sorry to cut you off, but what are banks in business to do, right? They are in business to lend money and make money off of their money. They're not in the business to buy real estate, hold real estate, foreclose on people. That's not what they want to do.
Now, the due on sale clause, every loan out there typically has a due on sale clause, from mortgages to home equity loans to even car loans, right?
So I guess let's back it up. What is the due on sale clause?
The due on sale clause is pretty much word for word exactly what it stands for. Is if the property sells, the loan is to be paid in full at that time. So the loan becomes due or immediately matures on the sale of the property. Yes, that is true. You're typically it's not that you're supposed to, but in normal traditional sales, at the time of sale, a mortgage is paid off. Why do banks put this in their mortgages? The reason that they put this in their mortgages is for the fact that it protects them against them not getting paid back for the money that they lent out for you to purchase the house, right? So if you go and sell the house and you take your proceeds and run, but you never pay off the bank basically just ate however many hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they don't have any protection. So basically, if they see that the house sold, but they were not paid off, they have the right to come and take the house no matter who owns it at that point, right? Now, just like Jay said, the bank typically does not care about you buying a house, keeping that loan in place, and making the payments, right? They're making their money every month, and what you need to realize is this. It's kind of like what your mom don't know, don't hurt her type thing, right? Where like if you're paying the bank every month, and let's just say your seller's paying the bank, and then boom, next month it starts coming out of your bank account. The bank doesn't know the difference. They just see that money's coming in. So they are just saying, okay, this loan is current, it's good to go. They're not going to go look into that loan, into that house, and you're one of hundreds of thousands, maybe even more than that, of loans that they have out on the table. They can't actually monitor every single one, but if you start to miss payments, if you don't have proper insurance on the home, then that file is actually going to land on a real person's desk and not just be in the computer. And when that physical person, maybe it's like a mortgage assessor or something like that within that company, they're going to say, oh, shit, well, the mortgage is in this person's name. Now it's in this person's name or in this company's name. We never were notified about that. What's that about? Then they're going to reach out or, crap, they're supposed to have the insurance policy doesn't list us. And it looks like it's also a new policy. We're not insured now, right? And then that's when they're going to get, it's basically like, panic button, call the loan due, I'm taking the property.
Now, Mike is making it seem like it's just like one day to the next, right? They're going to take the property, right? That's not the case. And we tell this to our students all the time. It takes years for that to be exercised and proven, right, for the loan to be called due. Now, that's not to say that it cannot and it won't be called due. It absolutely can. But we teach our students or our clients ways that they can mitigate this from happening. One being how they buy the property, the second being how the insurance is set up, and so much more. Those are just two examples.
And I'm going to give you a little bonus on this one, right? There's 2 loan companies, to our knowledge, that we know of that are actually very strict, right? And if you were to get a loan through that company, right, you got to be very careful. So, with that being said, one way to debunk the due on sale clause, right? There's 2 ways that you can do it, beforehand and then after. Beforehand, the way to debunk it is that you would buy the house in a land contract, but you would take over the payments on the seller's behalf. That happens so that the actual ownership of the home doesn't transfer. Now, afterwards, if you buy the home and then the due on sale clause gets transferred, you technically can transfer the house back to the seller, right? And then have that seller do a land contract with you. So then you go and show the bank, the house is now back in the seller's name. You know, we took care of what you were worried about, and then you're done. That's 2 ways, right? And I make it sound very easy. There's a lot of moving parts that go into this, and it's also important that you're aware, you keep your seller aware of these things, because if that ever happened, you need to be able to talk with your seller.
And have the right team in place. When I mean team, I mean, first of all, someone guiding you through these type of transactions if you've never done one before. Second, a good TC who knows how to do these transactions and facilitate the transactions with the proper paperwork that'll help you not only after you purchase, but down the road if something comes up, right? And third, an attorney who understands this. We both have seen so many different ways that you can buy subject to, right? But the attorney puts the paperwork in many different ways. So I just want to point that out. Now let's go to our second bulletin point, and that is creative wholesalers. Are you on the hook or off the hook when you wholesale these deals? So first of all, yes, you can wholesale creative deals. And if you don't know what wholesaling is, we'll kind of touch upon that really quickly. That's basically when you get a house under contract and then you take that contract and you make it assignable, right? That means you can take it to another investor and say, hey, I have this contract. If you pay me X amount, you can take over the terms outlined in the contract.
And then they pay you a finder's fee at closing. Now, when it comes down to wholesaling creative financing deals, right, this is not for beginners, and I don't advise beginners to just jump headfirst into wholesaling creative deals, because if you yourself have never done one and bought it yourself, you should not be out there assigning and wholesaling basically somebody's credit to somebody else. Now, there's 2 things, right? You can do straight seller financing deals where you are just going to the seller and making the seller payments, right? There is a lot less risk at that, because at the end of the day, you're making payments to the seller, and if you stop paying, there's different clauses and things that you can be put in place where the seller can take it back. But if you stop paying the seller and they don't have a loan in place, right, their credit's not taking a hit, they're just not getting their payments. The other part is when you do a mirror wrap or a subject to deal where you're taking over a seller's mortgage on their behalf and it is not going in your name, right? That is their credit out on the line. That is their livelihood. That is basically their name that you're playing with, right?
So what do we mean by creative wholesalers? Are you on the hook or are you not? Can you get sued down the road for assigning this creative deal?
And you're not going to get sued for just assigning it. What you'd probably get in trouble for, and we have been seeing this come up, which is why we're bringing it up now, is You assign a subject to deal or a mirror wrap where you're taking over the seller's payments, and you go to your neighbor and you say, hey man, I got this creative financing deal, super low interest rate. Give me 20 grand and you close on it, right? And you take over the seller's payments. Well, there's a lot of noise in the industry going on right now about how, since it's not your loan, since it's not on your credit, if you can't pay, you're not obligated to pay, right? Because it's not going to affect you. Well, push comes to shove, maybe it won't affect your credit, but you're killing a normal person's life by doing that. And you're putting them in a terrible position, and they came to you for help. Now, as the wholesaler, if Jay has a house for sale and I tell her, hey, I'll just take over your payments on your behalf, right? And I'm going to buy it, right? So mirror wrap subject to. And then I go to my neighbor and I say, here you go, man. And then my neighbor, after he closes a year down the road, 3 months, a month, who knows, he stops paying and he defaults. That seller, even though you can have as many clauses as you want, they can still come back and sue you and say, hey, you know, like, even though
you can still be named in the lawsuit.
You can still be named. That's the best way to put it. You can still be named in the lawsuit, and you can still be on the hook. So how do you mitigate this? One, don't be doing this if you're a newbie, right? Get some training, get some mentoring and coaching first. Do a couple deals yourself and learn the risks and learn how to respect the nature of the deal, and then go out and assign it off. Two is you need to be vetting your buyers. For all of you guys who are watching, including the buyers that I love and including the buyers that you've now been blacklisted and we won't be working with you anymore, if you default on a loan, that is obviously on you. How do we mitigate that? We vet the shit out of our buyers. We have a whole script. We have about a five-point checklist of the things that we need from them before we'll even sign a contract with them, right? We need to make sure that they're legit. We need to make sure that they're not just on their next high because they got a paycheck and they want to go spend it somewhere, right? And now they can't make up those payments for that seller down the road. It's our job to protect the deal and to protect the seller, right? And obviously be truthful with the buyer. But it's our job on the front end to say, okay, if we're not going to keep this, but we told the seller that this is what we were going to do, it's our job to find the person that has the same moral and ethical compass in business that we do.
This isn't to scare you. Let me just say that first off. And I'm going to put my own opinion in there, right? And this is just my opinion because you don't know what's going to happen in the court of law, right? And say you wholesale a deal and for whatever reason, 8, 10, 20 years down the road, because we've assigned deals that are 30-year terms, for whatever reason, life happens to this person, right? We don't have a crystal ball. We can't foresee what's coming. And they can have a track record of years of making payments, and all of a sudden something happens in their life that they can't do that, right? Those are the hard conversations that have to be had at that time. And if there is a lawsuit, that is what you would, show and fight for in the court of law, because at the end of the day, we can't have a crystal ball. But like Mike said, you have to have procedures in place to try to mitigate those people who just think, oh, hey, just deed it back to them. If I have a house that, I was renting out and a tenant, screwed up and I'm new and it's going to put me in a hole, well, I'm just going to give the house back just like that. Like, that is, like Mike said, you're ruining that person's life. So take accountability for the things that you've done and move forward, because now this is a choice that you have, that you made, right? And it brings consequences. So that is not something that we even think to do when we buy a creative deal. That is not an option in our book, right? We are helping these people. They are in situations, and we have to run our numbers as investors for every play that could happen.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So that's that one. And on a lighter note, I'm going to take it to, did you know you can actually take other types and various other loans subject to? And here's what I mean. If you have a house that has just a mortgage, you can take that sub too. But what if that deal also had a roof loan? What if they got solar panels? Can you take them sub two? Is that a lien that has to be paid off at closing? Mike, what's the answer?
Absolutely. So there's certain liens. So all a mortgage is a lien. There's certain liens that you can take over, and there's certain liens you don't want to take over, right? So there's a lot of people out there who say, oh, crap, this house has a solar loan. Like, especially down in the South where there's a lot of heat and sun all year round and it's nice. There's a lot of solar loans because they're pumping the AC all the time. It's a lot of electricity. But these solar loans or these solar panels, they're tens of thousands of dollars. So when it comes up on the title report that there's a $60,000 loan, and this is actually an example, right? Now we're thinking, oh, crap. Or the buyer's thinking, or you, if you don't know this, you're thinking, crap, this just killed the deal. This whole loan has to get paid off now. It's 60 grand, right? No, that's not true. You take over that loan on the seller's behalf, just like you would with the first mortgage in place, and you just pick up right where they left off. And you just tell the title company or your attorney, hey, I'm going to just be taking over these payments. Instead of me paying it off, don't worry about it. Just keep it in place. Now, there's other loans, right? We've had a deal that we done where there was a roof loan against the house. The lady got a roof done, right? And I think there was 40 grand left on it, right, on that loan. We just took that loan over as well on the seller's behalf. Now, there's loans that you don't want to take over, and there's liens that you don't want to take over.
We've learned from experience.
Yes. So you could take over home equity loans, home equity lines of credit, all that stuff. But sometimes the second type mortgages like home equity loans or home equity lines of credit, they have variable interest rates. Even the solar loans or whatever, they all can have variable rates, even first mortgages. If it has a variable rate, right, we all know what's happening in the market right now. One, it's unstable. Two, the interest rates just keep going up. Everybody says they may come down. I think that's a load of BS. But, right, if you have a variable rate, that means payment will never be consistent. And if for some reason in the market the interest rates skyrocket, yours is going to as well. And what is the whole point of creative financing? You keep low interest rates. You get lower interest-bearing notes. Well, if your payment goes through the roof, whatever you're doing with that property, Airbnb, long-term rental, midterm rental, lease option, rent-to-own, wrap, whatever, the rent or the income that you're getting may not support that new payment anymore because it went through the roof. That is one to stay away from. Second, you may have not have known this. A lot of times in areas where you're looking at distressed houses or you're looking all that type of stuff, sometimes there's going to be back taxes on the property, things of that nature. You can assume that back taxes and you don't have to pay it off at closing. There's a way to go about it, but why would you not want to do that? There's only one way that me and Jay would ever do that, and is if we were buying a house for what was owed on the back taxes, maybe a little bit more or something like that, right? And we knew that we were going to buy it, renovate it, and sell it as fast as possible. When you assume tax debt or back taxes, you're also assuming of the risk of the house getting auctioned off at a tax sale for unpaid taxes. So if you buy the house, you renovate it, you sit on it for a year, your house could go to the auction because you assumed that risk. So that is another one where you want to stay away from it, even though you can do that, right? There's other loans that can go against the house, right? Other types of things. All subject to means is that you are not paying off a debt on the house and you are just taking it over and putting yourself in the seller's shoes moving forward.
Now, we get this question a lot. Are there any type of loans you cannot take over. So this is a bonus, and I'm going to give you 2 of them. Number 1 being a reverse mortgage. Those you cannot take subject to.
They are actually heavily monitored by the banks. Why? A reverse mortgage is when you have a lot of equity in your house, and a lot of older people do this. And the bank pays you a check every month. And every time they pay you a check, the balance owed on your house goes up, 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 up. So if Jay had a house with a reverse mortgage and I come in and she's like, I want to sell it for what I owe on the mortgage. I come in, I take over the reverse mortgage. The bank is immediately going to want their money back because they're not making money off of you anymore. They have been paying you money. So they're going to want their cash like this.
Guys, have I introduced you to my personal encyclopedia? But the second one is being hard money loans. They typically have strict guidelines that do not allow you to take over that loan, subject to.
And the reason being is they're private money. So a hard money loan is basically a company that goes out to private investors, private people like myself, like you that are watching this, and they take money from this person, this person, this person, this person at a certain interest rate. So that person's making money. And then the hard money lender marks up the interest rate on that money and then sells it to you. So they are lending non-institutional cash like a big bank. They're lending private capital from people that they've raised to then send off to you to make money. They're obviously going to be very strict with it because they're not this massive institution. They're a smaller company. We have seen people be able to take over hard money loans, but unlike a big bank, you actually need to call the hard money lender and get approval, right? And typically they will be willing to work with you if the person you're trying to buy the house from is in a bad financial situation, because the hard money lender is going to say, okay, we have 2 options. We may lose a shitload of money right now, or we can have this person step in, take over the payments, make our money, and get this thing paid off. But why would you not want to take over a hard money loan? The only way you'd want to is if you're going to flip the house or if the person that you're taking it over from. Typically, a hard money loan, you're using it for what's called a bridge loan, meaning that you are taking, it's going to be a 1-year term with high interest. So why would I want to come in, take over a high interest loan that's going to end at the 1-year mark, and I have to get it paid in full? Like I said, the only way that you'd want to do that is if you had the intent on flipping it, selling it, or buying it and refinancing it, right? And knowing that you're going to get out of that loan. So those are the 2 loans that we always say you probably want to stay away from. The one of which you can't do anything with, and the second, it's not that favorable.
And our last point with the various loan sagas and taking subject to is, other than houses, can you take other assets subject to? And that answer is yes. For example, you can take vehicles, boats, stuff like that, subject to any liens on them, right? All that means is that...
Or you can buy them with just straight old seller financing.
Yep. All that means is that you owe someone money, right? So they just have a lien until it's paid off.
Yep. We'll get into this on another video. We don't recommend it. We don't recommend you selling vehicles on creative financing. We'll get into why. Buying them on a creative financing, as long as you're an ethically sound business person, right? There's no problem with buying. It's the risk comes when you're selling it, and we'll get into that on another video. Now, our last point for the day, right? You take it away.
Yep.
Reason being is, honestly, I can't even see what the last bulletin point is.
Is being that in creative financing, a lot of people don't talk about building that rapport with the seller. Not only just to get the deal done, but also after the fact, right? Think about it. In a creative deal, you're getting into terms that are 10, 20, 30 years long. So you really have to get along with this individual or, pair, whatever, whoever the seller is. Because if something comes up down the road and you need them for some reason, maybe to call the bank, get something for you, and you have a bad relationship and you can't get a hold of them, that brings up a lot of hurdles for you, doesn't it?
Yep. And one thing and the reason we bring this up is because one thing that we've seen is that 95% of the buyers, even though they're great people, great gals, great guys, it always seems as if the seller is almost like the enemy. The seller is not the enemy. The seller, you want to be friends with the seller, right? Our sellers love us to death because we treat them like normal people. And there's one thing that you need to think about. If you are doing a deal with a seller, no matter if you paid them out their equity up front and you say that they're no longer part of the deal, their name, if there's a loan still attached to the house, or if you're paying them monthly payments every month, right, because it's old school seller financing, regardless of whichever one it is, their name is still tied to your house until you sell it or pay it off. So think about that. If you're not creating a relationship with your seller and maintaining that relationship, even if it's just a hi-bye type thing, think about if you ever needed them in the future for one reason or another, or if you needed a document from them, or you needed something signed by them, if you go to sell the house and you need a payoff or something, right? And you don't have a relationship and you almost went ghost mode on them after closing, imagine how hard it is for them to answer that call, for them to want to do anything with you. And get this, if you make the seller's life a living hell, like through the closing process and at closing, and you fought them on everything and you didn't really want to work with them because you're like, no, this is what we talked about, this is all you're getting, goodbye, right? Do you think that they're going to want to help you even years later, right? The easiest answer is an absolutely not. So just always make sure that you're treating your sellers with respect. You're maintaining the relationships, even if it's once a year. You say happy birthday or something so silly as that. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. Just make sure that you do that. So if you ever need them in the future, you got them. And if there's ever something that they're concerned about, the first person they're going to is you. They're not going to the bank first, and they're not going to an attorney. They'll always come to you first if they like and respect you.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If the seller doesn't like you, you're doing a deal with them, your sales process is absolutely shit. Because it should be you and the seller against the world, not you against the seller. Right? And we've talked about this before, previously on our Instagrams. We might have touched upon it in our YouTube episodes. But this is something that everyone should think about. It is not you against the seller. It's you two against the world to make a win-win situation for everyone, right? You have something that they want and they have something you want. Let's make it happen.
Yep. And on that note, I'm going to drop the mic because I think this was a really good one. All you guys who keep watching our videos, you never comment. Make sure you friggin' comment and you tell us if you like this and if there's anything that we can change or if there's anything specific you want to hear about, right?
Or you can continue to hear Mike ramble, one or the other.
One of the two. But you tell me what you want. With that being said, guys, always remember that if you like this video, to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and comment. We'll see you guys on our next episode next week, and we hope that you have a good one.
See you guys.